And we are live.
Oh, it's live. I love it.
Yeah, there we go. We're not in each other's electromagnetic field directly, but we are connecting through the quantum, Mr. Hanks.
We are, mate. We are right in that some level of connection through some fields that we're connected into. Some
That's
little
it.
wavelength between the Gold Coast, you and I.
There we go, right? And
Yeah.
of course, proudly wearing my GC Gold Coast for the Gold Coast Suns cap, because I believe they absolutely annihilated North Melbourne by 72 points about a week ago.
I think they did.
I think they're heading up. You better be careful with your Saints. We're coming for you.
Big game on Sunday, mate. On my birthday, Sunday. I'm going to go see the Saints on my birthday.
Oh, what? So it's at the Gabba, right?
No, at here local, Metrical.
Oh, right. Who they're playing?
The Eagles.
Oh, I'll be watching that from the
And
comfort of
the
my
Eagles,
screen.
Eagle being my totem.
Oh, there it is. God, you're even supporting the Eagles now too, mate. What's going on with that? That's confusing.
Yeah.
All right. So we are talking about today the spiritualogical and the
ego.
Wow.
And the benefits of how you can use getting access to your spirit to kind of sidestep through the ego, or however that works. You're the expert in that space, but how you can use it to your benefit in life, and especially in a corporate scene, in your work life, right? So
bypassing the ego, Tommy. Bypassing the ego.
Bypassing the ego. There we go. All right. But before we do, Mr. Hanks, how was your week?
Oh, good question.
I know for you it was crazy. For me, I'd have to do the same thing as you and go, what happened this week?
Well, we sort of transited to that sort of full moon frenetic energy, and it's been an interesting week.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's been what I realised, Tommy, was I actually went for a run this morning. I had a dip in the ocean, and I went for a body surf this morning. It is the first time I've been in the ocean for a week, and I'm usually in there, 3-4 times a week. And something in the last week, I haven't been engaging. I've been for a couple of runs, and I've been in the sauna, been in the gym, but I haven't been in my beloved ocean. And this morning I went in because the waves were I couldn't go past them. I went for a run. I didn't even have a towel with me, and I just went for a surf and a swim because I just had to get in the water because we just got the calling. And it was realization of, whoa, I sort of off track a little bit with my body surfing and my swimming. So it was good to bring myself back into alignment for my beautiful, for my daily body surf. So back on track again, so it was good. Been focused on business, and work, getting new clients, getting a sense of where I'm going. So it's been good. Good from that perspective.
Okay, all right. So it sounds like you had a week of, I don't know, what would you call it? Was it a bit of sort of a reset sort of for you?
A bit of a reset, bit of a sense of where I'm going forward and what I'm doing. I'm just about to get myself a new PC this week, and it's like, what do I want in the new website on my PC? Am I going to sort of reorganize myself? No, that's been a good feeling. And I often do this around birthday time to have a bit of a reset.
Okay. All right.
So good time.
I think that must be going around at the moment, because I kind of felt it was a bit of a crazy week. On my side as well. A lot of spinning plates, a lot of balls in the air right now. Projects where you and I are working on as well, and moving that forward. With the Corporate Alchemist project and the video series that we're starting to put together. It'll be a 12-week series, right?
Yeah, so I actually went to a friend's studio in Brisbane during the week, and I'm going back up next week to do a one day of filming for my programs. And he's got this amazing studio, film studio, sound recording studio, got 9 different studios. And he's a sound engineer, working on TV, doing documentaries. So I found the right person to work with. Totally beautiful professional studios, and got all the posters up of all the movies he's worked on over the last few years, and quite exciting to be stepping into that studio space next week.
Wow.
Which hopefully will be a precursor for you and I to step into the studio in a couple of weeks' time to start our work on our video series, which is really
Wow.
exciting.
Okay. Jeez, with that level of professionalism, we might be able to put it on Netflix.
Well, you know what? I'm not saying that if the Royals can get on there, because apparently Harry and Meghan have just decided to go onto Netflix. I
Oh,
saw
God,
yesterday.
I've heard.
So, mate,
What's
if Harry and
that?
Meghan can get on, you and I can get on.
Oh, my God. I was listening to it, and I don't know, I kind of felt this strange feeling in my stomach when Alan Jones was talking about it, and obviously, giving it a bit of stick.
Oh, really?
Last night.
Alan doing that? That's a surprise.
That wouldn't be Alan, right? That's okay, as long as the stick's pointing in the right direction. Yeah, interesting. All right, so let's get into it.
Yeah, raring to go, mate. Come on, let's go.
Let's go. Yeah, chafing at the bit, I can see. As we also enter that season of the year, horse racing. Although it'd be interesting to see what's going to happen with that in Melbourne. COVID-protected horses. They'll all have to be 1.5 metres apart as they're racing down the track. Okay. Yeah, otherwise, those horses are going to jail.
Hey, something for in your ballpark, mate. Some really serious news. The Sydney Hobart may not happen this year.
Whoa.
The yacht race may not
happen.
Because they've got to go over the border, past Victoria.
Oh, my Lord. Well,
unless
hey, look.
Unless they can circumnavigate and go around the side of New Zealand and sort of come up through Antarctica or something.
Right. Well, they're crazy. Eh? They'll have to reset the course. And interestingly, I mean, one of the benefits is that, of course, Queensland's getting a lot of the football action here locally, and the grand final is going to be at the Gabba. Where can we get tickets for that? Right?
Yeah.
Incredible. All right.
Ready. Let's get into it. Let's go.
Let's go. So tell me, I mean, we were talking about the ego on Monday and the physiological side, but how the ego can affect your physiology. And when we talk about getting into certain states with your ego, where it's a massive defense system to protect, and a lot of executives are getting hammered constantly, or mid-range. Anybody at work is getting hammered by certain pressures, and the ego's there to help defend and protect them. But it doesn't make them very effective if they're not perhaps navigating and keeping it in its place. So how do you, because it's okay to have a healthy ego. It seems like being aware of it and then tapping into the spirit. I mean, what benefit could that give? And how do you know when it's in play, the ego? And then what steps do you take, Mr. Hanks, to be able to navigate?
All right. So from a perspective of the ego, we started with the physiological, and then I just want to bridge through to the spiritual a little bit. So I'm going to give it some context. Is we go from the physiological and the impact of the body when the ego's in play, and we spoke about that on Monday. And then when we start to look at the emotional body of what goes in play and what happens often when we're in that negative ego space in terms of the emotions, we're not sitting in a true emotion. We don't sit in and recognize and work with what's coming up in the emotional field. We bypass the need to deal with the emotions often time in the negative ego space. So what happens is, of course, those emotions get sunk into the body, the issue goes into the tissue, and in relationships with people, particularly in the workplace, we're relating to the ego space, not soul space or the communication space. So the relationship isn't very true because it's not soul to soul. And then when we take that over into the mental space, into the mental capacity, into the intellect, we're in ego space, we're not really working out of our true intellect either. We're not engaging with our wisdom, if you like, that intellectual wisdom.
Right.
So we bypass all the good stuff, and what we're feeding, in essence, is what I call the ego junkie. So the
ego junkie.
Ego junkie. We're sucking and eating and sucking on all those things that the ego needs from a junkie perspective, an addiction perspective. So the ego is really an addict, if we want to put it like that. And we keep feeding the ego with everything it needs to keep that addiction going. And they're not good things we keep.
Wow.
It's not
Well,
good.
then, I mean, you're saying the ego junkie, but I mean, how does the ego junkie a lot of the time even know that they're an ego junkie?
Well, they don't, because we
Right.
bypass the intelligence. We
Right.
bypass any feeling of emotion that feels that, because
Right.
we put that aside and we've gone into numb space. We've gone into a space of non-recognition, denial, all those different things we go into. We keep feeding that ego junkie space by denying how we're feeling, by denying what we're thinking, by denying what the intellect wants to engage with. And we go into that trajectory of becoming that ego junkie, and we see it all around us. And we've all had a taste of that. I feed my ego sometimes with that junk. But the more we do the personal development, spiritual development, business development, alchemical development, the more we start to recognize the feeding of that ego, the more we become conscious of starving it.
Wow.
Because we have
Okay.
to starve it out of existence.
So this is interesting because, as I was brought up in the corporate world for my career, and you were always taught to be, objective, data driven. It was all left brain, prefrontal cortex analysis, your reticular activation system scanning for any danger, or just scanning and polling and then trying to connect to recognize what situation you're in. But it was always, coming from an objective point of view, coming from being data driven, right? And if you're good at that game and through the left brain and having that data and being able to fight a fight better than anybody else, you won, right? And you got the support because it took everything else away, and it's data. And now I look back and go, holy crap, they had it all wrong. I think that's healthy to play a part, but unless you're switching on your right brain and feeling from your heart as well, you're leaving, as I've said before, the corporate world has been getting ripped off, as has every other part of your personal world, because you haven't switched on all these fantastic other assets you have through the heart and then connect through the spirit on completing the picture, closing the whole loop, taking all the bits of information. We've been like half switched on, if that, in how we could have been so much more effective and had been so much more fulfilled in purpose in life.
That ego drive, that competitive drive shuts out all the normal soul emotions and the wisdom and the intellect of being human. It's like it's an off switch. And once people engage in that space, in that ego space, of course, it has a huge effect on the spiritual development, because the last thing one wants is to have spiritual development when one's feeding the ego with all that drive. So the spiritual component, I want to get to this in the conversation today, is that spiritual connection gets locked up, absolutely locked up. And that's when, for me, the alarm bells go off, because if we're not connected to that higher aspect of living, if we're not connected to purpose and, being on the planet for the good of the humanity and the planet, etc., it's like, what the F are we doing here? What's it all about, really, at the end of the day? Like, when they read the epitaph that, at the end of the life, it's like, what did this guy done? Oh, he met his KPIs.
He was good in business.
And really, what does that say about
change the world? We're all capable of changing the world, and it's funny, because we're at such obviously, stating obvious, a very interesting juncture in the world right now. And this isn't just about this CV19 thing. It has brought about, that little thing has brought about so many other things that are going on right now in the world, and things that we perhaps haven't been realizing that's been going on in the world. But when you look at that data analytic left brain, they sometimes call it reptilian sort of approach to life, and on data and being the smarter one in the shed, some of them trying to take over the world, no names mentioned. But that's going to be outsourced. That's going to be with, like, when we look at AI and things like that, and computers and even robots. I mean, all that stuff. If you're only operating there, you're going to be made redundant as a human, unless you tap into your higher self, which means you're going to go to the spirit, which means you've got to go through the heart, which means you've got to be, the V word, not so much the E word anymore, vulnerable.
Yeah. And I'd say, Tommy, it's even going beyond heart. It's going, into that deep soul place and that spiritual place of connecting with everything, connecting with the big computer in the sky. Like, let's get, because there's data upstairs.
The quantum's there waiting.
We can't even imagine what that is.
How? Right.
Can't even, no idea. I mean, we think we got some RAM on our computer. I mean, upstairs,
it's like unlimited.
And if we don't prepare ourselves to be open to that, we're never going to receive it. And I'll give an example. And this, for some, this will be controversial. This will be a challenge to get it done. I want to take us to an image of a crop circle. I don't know if you've seen the latest ones that are just appearing now in the UK. They are mind-blowing. These things are just through July, August. Some of them were so multi-dimensional, so bizarrely formed. With Dave and his planking into the string. Just to get to a quantum level of understanding of what we're trying to be communicated to us, because that's my belief. I've actually sat in the set circle in the UK, lucky enough, playing with it. And the messages coming through from whatever dimension is creating these is way beyond human intelligence. And yet I believe when we tune in and tap in, we'll be able to understand it. And some are already claiming those statements. I've had a taste of that by sitting in the crop circle and getting a soul connection to that imagery. And that's just the beginning. I mean, these are just pictures. They're not even frequencies yet, really. This is like rudimentary, crayon on paper.
Right. I mean, just to have humanity take the step, the leap into doing the first few things to start to tap it, to wake up. But here's the challenge we have, Mr. Hanks. It's very interesting, is that where the world is right now in this state of fear in a lot of respects for those that have been doing the right thing as far as they're concerned, and they may have been following their particular religion. They may have been doing all the right stuff in their job. They've been at it for 20, 30, whatever years. And all this unpredictability that comes in, I think, well, I did all the right things, and I went to church, and I did everything that was written down, and I did my job, and I went there every day, and I've been super loyal. And it's all about the change and all this fear that's coming in, right, with many agendas at play, confusing everybody, there's a lot of fear. So how do you teach a drowning person how to swim then? Because a lot of them feel like they're starting to drown. The economy that was being bolstered up by the government, that's starting to become very surgically provided now as they're taking it out from the big broad spray to try and save some dollars. How do people at that level in fear start to take the steps?
So for me, from that spiritualistic perspective, Tommy, it's about connecting with a deeper aspect of who I am from a spiritual being perspective.
Right.
Like, who am I at the core? It's metaphorically, if I stand in front of my mirror naked, without all the trimmings, without my ego, without my material possessions, without all of my support system, all those real things I connect with on the planet, who am I at the core of my being? That's the question to me always. Who am I as a human being?
Right.
Core?
Right.
And then if I can reach that core,
And then I'm connected physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And I become that conduit to that bigger connection. And I'm not feeding my ego in that space with, my ring. But a friend of mine in South Africa said many years ago, said, when men stop measuring their dicks and their wallets, it'll be a great planet.
Right.
And there's some truth in that.
Right.
It's like, who are you at your core?
Who are you at the
and
core?
It's coming back to that core, the spiritual core of who I truly am. And the measure of that, Tommy, for me is, people ask me, how do you measure your spirituality, Adrian? I said, by the next person I meet. And what I mean by that is how I connect and work with and engage with the next person I meet on the planet, with no judgment, no reaction, no projection, no force of anger. How can I hold my spiritual soul connection to that next human being?
Right.
That's hard work.
It is work, right? I mean, any day you start is a great day. And we've been brought up in a system whereby, here you go, go to school, go to university, take your training, be trained in this. So the program the chips have been put in effect from a virtual sense. In future, there's obviously an attempt to try and do that from an actual physical sense. But the chips have been put in. These ones, just go and operate on these ones and all will be good. Go and get your job. Go and work hard, right? Nowhere is there any training on, am I here at school? How about we learn about who you are as an individual? What's in the curriculum that helps our kids, and even at university, when they're at that level, learn about who they are, what their strengths are, learn about connecting to all the things that they have for them to be the best human beings so that they can be fully satisfied on purpose and contribute the most to the planet coming out. I mean, the education system is like, what? It's about 100 years old and hasn't changed. I mean,
no.
It's like, wake up.
It's gone backwards, in my opinion, Tommy. It's gone backwards. It's like, it's pretty shocking, the education system. It's a sausage factory, it really is. It's like going one end and come out the other, and a few lucky individuals learn how to milk the system and work for the system and come out with some good results. Others, probably like myself, who got out early, saved myself.
Right.
Yeah. But when we bring this back to the space of male, I'm talking about the male ego here, because the female ego is a bit different. I've been sitting in men's circles, Tommy, as a participant and as a facilitator now for like nearly 25 years. Right. And if you want to meet ego, go and sit in a men's circle. And there's men all walks of life, from guys, multi-millionaires to guys who are, unemployed and sleeping on the street. I've sat with all of them.
Yeah. Some of them have learned the money game well. Some of them have learned to do the money game. Yeah.
And I've sat there with clients in all walks of life, from the multi-millionaires down to the people on the street as a psychotherapist. And when the ego is in play, there's not much room for connection. So when we learn to dissolve that ego and meet man to man, male to male, human to human, and that connection starts to happen.
Connection.
And we break away from the competition and the bullying. A lot of ego is connected to bully nature. And it's no different than sitting in a boardroom or a business meeting when there's men in the room. Ego is at play. Spiritual ego is, I'm holier than you, ego in that spiritual space. And it's about breaking that down to one question often is, and it's the old story of Parsifal, from way back from the 12th, 13th century, Arthur and the Round Table sort of stories, is the question of meeting one brother, one fellow male human, and saying, what ails thee, brother?
Yeah.
And in modern language, I'll put it into modern language, hey, what's up?
Right. Okay.
If we can sit with another man and ask him, what's really going on, what's up, or what's going on, and we break down that veneer of the ego and spend 10 minutes behind the veneer. And this is what I love about my psychotherapy work. I break beyond the ego veneer and I get underneath the mask of being a businessman, the mask of being a CEO, the mask of being male. And we get to the core wounds and we heal those wounds. And by healing the wounds, Tommy, in the psychotherapy of this place, the ego lessens because it doesn't need to protect anymore.
Right.
So for me, the ego has its place in terms of I'm here to protect my wound, my little boy, the innocent one.
Right.
So we have to go behind the scenes, do the healing, do the psychotherapy work. Let's heal the wound so we can soften the ego.
Right.
So for me, softening the ego takes a bit of therapy sometimes, a bit of psychotherapy work, some soul work.
Right.
To soften the space.
Right.
Yeah.
They've got,
And as you know, probably better than me in that corporate space, soft isn't a word that goes well in that space.
No, it's not.
Softening the ego. So,
No, it'd be like being in the military. It's just one step back, because you've got to kind of psych out the other in this game. And the thing is, any form of disunity. I mean, I had a Facebook post this week that blew up. It was really, really interesting to see the polarity that has also been developed, and that could be on another tangent, a strategic intent to create polarity in the world right now, so that people are battling with each other rather than where they should be looking, and to change things. But I'm very confident that we are, and this term's being used a bit with Mr. Trump at the moment, draining the swamp, right? And I think the world right now, I think the sink plug's been pulled out, and we are draining the swamp, and things are becoming visible as a result that we didn't realize was sitting in under the swampy water. And so, looking at that and perhaps using maybe some examples that you've seen or you've experienced, or where in a microcosm point of view from a swamp, and let's deal with a corporate executive individual that you've dealt with, where they've been either a part owner in a firm or worked in the corporate world, they're reasonably high up. What sort of things have you seen? And maybe one example you could use of an anonymous person, right? And the change in how they went from ego to spirit.
For me on the screen, Tommy, I don't know whether my volume's dropped, but your volume has dropped for me a little bit.
Right. Oh, so yeah, yours has been in and out, but you can't hear me?
Yeah, but it's very quiet.
It's very quiet, right? Yeah, yours has been too. That's strange. Okay, it could be a StreamYard.
Well, as long as you can hear me well, I'm sure the listeners and the viewers can hear us well. So
I can hear you, and I can hear me.
Yeah, good.
I don't know if they can hear me.
So Tommy, there's a couple of individuals that come to mind that I've worked with who are pretty high up there in that space, working for some let's computer space companies when I was living in Sydney. And one of the biggest challenges in breaking that barrier down for them so that they could become more human was to get them to look at how they could be a leader from a more connected perspective. So rather than leading out of fear and leading out of the bully space or leading out of the old paradigm, is let's look at a new structure. So a lot of it is drawing forth from the person I'm working with is, if you had a choice to be that leader in your space with your team, to be an effective, authentic leader, what would you do differently? And they the first look is what do you mean? Is there an option? Is there another way? And it's this might take a few sessions, of connection and working through, but let's make a plan of how you'd like to be a leader in a new, authentic way. And then over a few, weeks, months, coming up with a plan and introducing new ways of leadership. Mostly not from what I feed, because I can come up with 400 different options, but get that individual to find out what's inside him to be his authentic leader. And it's amazing what they come up with. Seriously, like, it's incredible. Some of the results that I can share is in one individual that I remember is just going into the office on a Monday morning and getting the team in the room for 10 minutes and just having a 2-minute share. How was your weekend? You're like, 2 minutes each. How was your weekend? And it's like, suddenly there's a human connection.
Right.
It's not like, okay, guys, Monday morning, 9 o'clock, by Friday, we're going to get this set, you're going to get this result, and if you don't, you don't get your bonus throughout your door.
Right, yeah.
It's like,
Shows your sales
we're going to
funnel.
start with some humanity here, just by a check-in. And it's like, and the guy said, the first day of introducing, he said it was like sitting there with, 20 stunned rabbits in headlights. Because it's like, what the F are you doing here? Like, what have you been on, and you know what the difference was? He hadn't been on anything because part of it was taking him off the substances he was on.
Wow. Okay. I mean, it's biochemical, right? You can biochemically alter yourself through your own brain and switching certain things on and off, even epigenetically, or you can do it. I mean, just look at Joe Dispenza; he's proven it with science. And as Bruce Lipton, or you can use something biochemically that you can ingest. But that's not you, but at least you get to experience and see what it should feel like if you could do it. We have to be obviously there's ethical issues here of how far. I mean, drugs, for example, right? And now it seems, and I know Trump signed off the bill for CBD and all that, a couple of years ago. But these things that are coming in to help us, which some of them are really good, but I guess the intent of what I'm trying to say here is it's better if you can do it organically. And I know I deal with a lot of biotech stuff, and that's to help people get a leg up, a bit of a catalyst, a bit of a lever, and where it can be integrated. But ideally, if you can do it just within yourself, which we all have the capability of doing, then fantastic. And this person you're saying started to tap in. It took a few sessions before the, what do you mean, right? Because that's a defensive ego kind of coming up right there. It's like protecting the baby that's inside, the external bully, right? But then they start to come up with ideas. Well, if I could, and if it was safe to be, I'd love to actually just be like this.
Yeah.
And how amazing when they start to do that. And I guess the team in the beginning would be going, you've been taken by aliens. What happened to our boss?
Yeah.
Because they're not trusting. This is like different paradigm for them. They're going, hang on, we don't trust this change. What's going on, right? Until it becomes a regular thing, and maybe more one-on-ones with some of the individuals, because I know an experience for people that I've worked for. One boss, love him. I won't mention his name here, but it could be a little embarrassing for him, even though it's going to be a positive feedback. He would connect with me. He would empathize with me. He would understand my challenge, and I started to trust him. I felt safer with him, and then feeling safer, I felt I wanted to serve this guy. I didn't want to let him down, and I believed in him as he believed in me. And I wanted to go the extra few yards for him because I believed in also what we were trying to do, right? Now, if you can get that connection with your people, that is gold, right?
Yep.
But it took opening the heart, them probably being comfortable with themselves, more of a spiritual place, to be able to do that. And I've had the other ones as well. And that relationship didn't last long, right? Yeah. Because then my defense would come up and my Spartan would come out, and I'm thinking, what am I doing here? This
and tell me, and what happens? What often happens in that ego space when that conflict happens in the workspace is whoever's got the higher position, wins.
Right.
Because he plays the authority game. Like you're out of here, right. You're out of here, you're out of here, you're out of here.
Right.
So that ego, is comes into play in terms of control. Dangerous control sometimes. I mean, we're seeing it at the moment. I'm not going to mention any politicians' names in Victoria, but we can see it playing out. Well, there's part ego but there's also part
Dan Andrews
puppetry
doesn't
as
have
well.
an ego, does he?
Well, it's part ego, Tommy, but it's also part puppetry as well. You know, he's not fully present because he's being manipulated by the higher powers.
So many agendas that are pulling him in the direction. He is a sock puppet. I think what's his name?
And he's got to play the game, you know, because his ego needs to play the game.
Yeah, I wouldn't like to be in his Euros right now, right? His skin.
No.
Because when this has gone through its phases, he's still going to be there as the guy that was the hero, or who knows, right? So anyway, let's not get too political.
So let's swing back into that spiritualogical and just talk about that for a moment of how to engage, if you like, in that higher dimension and working on that space of dissolving the ego. Yeah.
Right.
And as I've shared before, Tommy, it's about doing the inner work, connecting to that core aspect. And one of the greatest gifts around that, when we hit that core and we get that little bit of a wake up call that there maybe is more than just, you know, that drive relationship, is one becomes aware a little bit that other people have needs. And once we engage with the needs of others, we start to serve the needs of others. You know, not by giving fully of ourselves and losing ourselves by giving, but just recognizing. So in that corporate space, it's a bit back to what I said before. Is, you know, what ails you, brother? What do you need? What do you need to heal your ego wound?
Right.
And if we can come into that space, obviously that language wouldn't be used, but if we can meet those individuals in the organization, because let's be really clear, man. None of us get away with not having a wound. I haven't met one human being in my 50 odd years on this planet that's not carrying a wound. Physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, sexual, financial, you know, there's a wound. And most people carry that wound, with a great big barrier in front of it to protect it, which is the ego. So going behind that space safely. So the word that comes in the business corporate space is we got to create a place of safety so that the spirit can emerge and the ego can dissolve. If we don't have that safety, nothing will ever change. And the corporate space has not been safe.
It's not safe. It is totally unsafe and driven by fear, motivated by fear. Like you said, you know, well, you don't get this done, then you're out of here.
Yep.
And that's constantly, you know, what people are thinking most of the time. Certainly from I think the X's and the boomers, the millennials have got a bit of a different attitude, you know, where they'll say, you know what, this doesn't sort out for me, I'm out of here, you know, which I think, you know what, I think that's partly healthy, partly not, because there's still ego that's in there, right? But at least they're thinking, you know what, I perhaps I deserve better than this. In connecting to themselves, but we're in a very interesting phase globally right now. A lot of forces, and I think a lot of that's going to be impacted. I think that a lot of that's going to impact what's going to bleed into the corporate world as well.
Yeah, I think what it does on a positive perspective, Tommy, I'm seeing more and more and more is those people that are finding that connection and buffering up against that business corporate ego.
Right.
They're swinging that around and taking on their own entrepreneurial businesses and becoming leaders themselves from a different perspective. So we're getting a new breed of leaders coming through because they've had enough of the old paradigm. Yeah. They're recognizing they don't want to be bullied anymore. They don't want to be put down anymore. They don't want to get into that competitive space anymore. It's all about connection. And those new entrepreneurs coming through, I think, are the next positive leaders, and they're the ones I want to support. They're the ones I want to get behind. They're the ones I want to go, let's go for it. Let's get these collaborations happening. Let's support each other.
They're ready.
Yeah, they're ready. But what they need, probably in their youthfulness or in their lack of life skills or lack of just life experience, is leadership from a couple of elders, a few elders who have broken through that paradigm too. Hence the corporate alchemist space.
Right.
You and I are putting our hands up to, offer some of that leadership, as are others too,
Yep.
Some people will love it and go, "Yep, we're on board." With others will go, "Who the F do you think you are, guys?" And that's
Yep.
the ego speaking. But if
Yep.
people can just take a moment,
Yep.
and say, "What do I need in terms of having a mentor, having a coach, having a leader to guide me, challenge me, yeah, to break through from that old paradigm into a new paradigm?" And
Yep.
the deal is, Tommy, if people don't seek and find that new leadership, yeah, they're going to fall back into the old paradigm.
Right. Right.
They're going to fall back
Yeah.
into the old ego. They're going to start feeding the ego again with
Yep.
all those things we spoke about before. The sugar, the ego sugar, the ego
The ego
diet.
sugar. Yeah. The
Yeah.
ego sugar. Love it. Well, it's interesting because, I mean, it's systemic as well, right? Everything's been built around driving that same mode of operation in people. And, you can't save everyone. And a lot are at the latter part of their careers. But a lot of the experienced leaders that have made the move from the older paradigm organizations into some of the new ones that you talk about, plus some of the, millennials that are now starting their own gigs, are the ones that can be probably helped the most because they're going to be most receptive to it. So, where, in the case of you and me on the Corporate Alchemist project, where is it we operate that's going to have the most effect on the planet, from a psychographic point of view, perspective, looking for those that are ready to take this leap. And for those that knock on the door that are in the old paradigm that are ready too, then absolutely. I mean, they'll come,
Yep.
But organizationally, it's going to be those sort of organizations that you're talking about that want that experience of, business and having gone through the change to bring that to the fore of where everything is going.
Yeah. And Tommy, I want to liken this a little bit back to the early adopter or the early investor. There's the early investor, that there's a new company on board, put out a few shares and bit of an opportunity, sort of high risk, not quite sure if it's going to make it or not. But those early investors, they get the bigger rewards.
Right.
A bit of a risk, got to step into a bit of a new paradigm. I don't quite understand the market here, but it feels good. I've done my research. I've done my due diligence around it. Feels okay. Good bit of leadership around it. Good stats. I'm going to step in. I'm going to learn a little bit from those in that space. And then the next level come on board, and then the next level. But you're always going to get those early investors or early adopters. And I'll tell you what, those that jump on board now with this new post-COVID paradigm are going to be the ones that really, really benefit.
Oh.
They're going to be the leaders that look up. It's like it's there.
It's funny.
It really is. It's opportunity of a lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, for those that were understand in the corporate world, we had these new IT companies that were being born using technologies of company vendors that I was working for. And some of the old companies and this new cloud thing that was happening, they found it very difficult to adopt into the change. And a lot of the leaders wanted to go there, but the systems that were set up didn't allow it, right down to like how people were compensated, the actual business model, etc. But then we had these ones that were born in the cloud. They were the new ones. Right, and they were from people that had left the old paradigm, believed in where it was going with this new thing called the cloud, and they went and they moved fast. And so we have a similar situation here, where these ones that are the new ones, that are native, or ones that have broken out, that are going that way. Those old organizations, I was trying to work with them. I was trying to help them through the change. It was hard, Adrian. It was super hard, super slow. And I thought, I'm not going to get my return over here. I put most of my resources over to the other side, and we rode that, and unfortunately, it's just the way things are.
Yeah. So tell me, the question then is what's the next thing that people in the business corporate space are really looking for, that they recognize that's a reality that's real, tangible, of what the change is that they need to embrace to move through to the next paradigm. And one of those is, and I'll name it for those listening and watching in, is the breaking down, of the ego.
Right.
I think it's one of the probably key 4 things that we'll share as we go through the next few weeks of the other aspects. I just want to stick to the one topic today because I don't want to confuse.
Yeah.
I recognise, in the conversations we've had, there are 4 key indicators of what need to be changed or broken down for business corporate to shift. And one of them is the softening and breaking down of the ego, the male ego energy in business. If it doesn't, we're staying in our paradigm.
Right. Okay. So that is going to be the stream for the next 4 weeks. I think let's focus on that and, take these 4 steps over this next month on how we can break it down for people to take steps, because I think this is super timely right now, and break it down into digestible pieces of, breaking down the ego. And I mean, can we look at that maybe even a different way? It's like, rather than breaking down the ego, feeling your heart or learning about your soul. And then as you take a risk into that.
2 different things for me, Tommy. One, the ego's very, very different than the heart space, because that involves, aspects of empathy and sympathy and moving into the feeling space.
Right.
Whereas to break down the ego, one has to go into battle.
Interesting. Okay.
One has to go into battle. And the image I'll give is St. George and the Dragon, or St. Francis of Assisi with the wolf.
Yep.
We've got this thing, the dragon or the wolf, which is, if you like, the ego, and we have to tame it. And you're not going to do that softly zen with the heart space. Compassion, love. That comes later, because we have to have some compassion
break it down
for that thing. But the first thing we have to really go into that battle.
Right.
The psychological battle, the mental battle, the physical battle, the spiritual battle in the spiritual space to tame that one that wants to take control and keep getting fed up. The dragon, in mythology, it eats the virgins, it eats the nourishing, the good.
Wow. Okay. So we're going to break it down to build it up, basically, is what you're saying.
We've got to go into battle. We've got to tame that monster and put it on chain.
Right.
Then we can go in and give it some massage and some love and attention.
Right. Yeah,
but we've got to get the chain around its neck first, and we've got to tame it. And that's, that's warrior work.
Okay.
And that's things like Tommy and Adrian standing in the workspace with 20 men who wanted to go to battle. We're going Top Gun here, like we talk about the analogy of Top Gun. We're going to go in and we're going to hit the road flying. We're going to come up and we're going to bottle up against ego. We're going to do some deep, 4th dan karate, energetic, work to break this down.
Yep.
Because once we go into battle and we tame it, then we can go to the next level. But the ego is, in the 25 years of doing the men's work, when I hit that ego, I don't stand in my zen.
Right.
It's like I'm here to do battle, because if I don't battle that ego, not from the ego,
just getting under control.
You battle it from stillness, you battle it from center, you battle it from wisdom.
Wow.
Yeah, you battle it with wisdom, you battle it with all the different tools.
Okay, I've got some great tech that can actually help us monitor these different states and with the ego as well. But anyway, we'll talk about that at another time. That would be great.
That'd be great. It'd be great to measure that, and you can do that through things like life blood analysis. You can do it through, measuring energy fields. You can do it by measuring vibration, variable heart rates. There's
HRV.
A myriad of measurables that we can bring into that space to prove the change. But the biggest proof at the end of the day, Tommy, is Monday morning meetings are going to be different.
They are. Everybody wants to be there. Everybody wants to perform. Everybody wants to go and have fun. They want to be, behind their leader to go and make the difference in the world. Mr. Hanks, we are out of time because I'm supposed to be somewhere else in less than 30 seconds. So
All right, mate.
an abrupt ending to a
Well,
beautiful.
Tommy G, what a great topic. You know,
what a great topic.
Spiritual ego.
What a great topic, right? And we're going to carry this through the next 4 weeks on how steps we can take to break it down. I think it's an awesome way for us to go. If anybody wants to learn some more about you, Mr. Hanks, and of course your new book, 2084, how can they connect with you? How can they find it? There it is. There it is.
It's the novel.
The book, 2084.
So,
yeah.
So, Tommy G, for me, the simplest place, remember the name Adrian Hanks and put a www in front of it and a comma at the end of it. www.adrianhanks.com. Easy.
Dang. And they can message you here on Facebook. They can
Easy,
look you up on Facebook.
Give me a blower, look me up, coming off dinner, coming off lunch, coming off a surf.
There we go. Also coming out of surf. And myself, biotechexec.net, you can see it in the name just there, is our program that we run. The TommyGallant.com page is being rebuilt. It's there, but that's going to go through a massive metamorphosis over the next 3 months. And we have our video series, which is going to start production in the next couple of weeks as well, the Corporate Alchemist Project. And of course, after that, there'll be a retreat, which you kind of almost touched on, with getting 20 men in the room, and looking very much forward to that, and seeing the egos and seeing if there's enough ego room to at least let them in the room to begin with, as they then connect with their spirit. So,
yeah. And Tommy, just a little softener to let people know. In terms of the next few weeks, we've got some amazing two women have come on board to do some market research for us for the CAP. So over the next few weeks, there's probably going to be some market research going out there. You know,
oh, true, correct.
Maybe especially to the people who are watching and listening in. So if you get something in terms of a mail or a message to help Tommy and I to build the CAP, please do engage.
Yeah.
And we would really appreciate that engagement to help us improve the journey going forward.
Absolutely. And especially to the Corporate Alchemist Project group, where we have a number of executives, but also outside of that, because this video is CAP TV, this will be, Mr. Hanks, on the page.
Thanks for the bit, mate. Thanks for the bit.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll be controlling this one. So the CAP TV is on the page. You can go and see on the Corporate Alchemist Project page. But if you want to join the group, come to the Corporate Alchemist.
And the group is where I put a message this morning.
Right. Okay. Woo! On LinkedIn. Yeehaw.
I got it right.
All right. Okay, guys. Have a good weekend, Mr. Hanks.
I'll
be catching up with you later on today, my friend. Okay. Love to everybody, and have a great weekend.
See you, mate.